Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Arts and Lifestyle Wednesdays on the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast, and every other week that means a visit with Timothy Finn, longtime Kansas City music writer, and now someone who plies his trade at In Kansas City magazine. You can also hear him with John Hart and an always entertaining hour Thursdays at 4 o'clock on 90.9 The Bridge. One of the things I love with visiting with Tim is we don't necessarily have to have big blockbuster topics in order to have fun talking about music. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about big mega shows at Sprint Center. Really haven't been many of those recently, or any of those that we've had the chance to discuss or look to discuss. Instead, we're going to meander off into a few different areas today, like bar bands and bar venues, and we'll still dollop in our usual look at some shows coming up that Tim will advocate for you and create something to put on your itinerary, and that includes such acts as Leo Kottke, who'll be tonight in Lawrence, and a band called Darlingside that's been very well received. Recently heard him on NPR, as a matter of fact, and they will be in town in a couple of weeks at a show that Tim will be reviewing on In Kansas City magazine. So a lot of things to meander through, as usual. We both love music. We know you do too. Here we go. After this. Looking for a truly unique escape from your normal entertainment or corporate team-building regimen? Stay tuned for an exclusive offer only for Reasonably Irreverent listeners. I'm excited to tell you about an extraordinary destination, the Exit Room, located in the heart of beautiful downtown Lee Summit. The Exit Room is a distinctive entertainment option that offers a cool alternative to the normal couples night out, family get-togethers, and corporate team-building events. The Exit Room is a one-of-a-kind boutique escape room catering to special occasions and corporate team-building events, and is unmatched in the Kansas City metro. With 5 individually designed and varied escape room adventures, your party or employees can unplug from their electronic world, interact with one another, match wits, and ultimately escape the humdrum of the ordinary. The Exit Room adventures cross decades and centuries and create fascinating fun. I know the owners well. They are local folks, their staff is warm and friendly, their lobby is inviting and beautiful, and their adventures are award-winning. Check online. There are over 1,000 reviews, and note that they are a rare 5-star ranked business. Visit their website and Facebook page, and any of my listeners who books online at theexitroomkc.com using the promo code Clinkscale19 gets 10% off any ticket purchase. The Exit Room in Lee Summit. Unplug, interact, and escape.
For many people, a family law case will be one of the most difficult experiences in their life. The law firm of Kenneth McRae will help you through it. Personal and effective help from Ken in concert with you will develop a unique strategy for your unique case. As Ken always says, divorce can be civil law, not civil war. Licensed in Kansas? Visit McRaeLawOffice.com or call 913-972-4765.
Get a refreshing change of your expectations of a sports bar and restaurant at the 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. Matt Llewellyn's welcoming spot at Clinton Parkway and Cassold covers all the bases, like their own handcrafted beers and all the televisions you need for great sports viewing, but it's the large, varied, and delicious menu that stands apart. From a favorite of mine like the awesome ahi tuna appetizer to great sandwiches, outstanding pizza, and truly fantastic entrees, the 23rd Street Brewery has it all. Matt and his friendly staff make it that much more enjoyable. Food until 10, fun until late. The 23rd Street Brewery is a can't-miss stop when you are in Lawrence. Here once again with Timothy Finn, and he, of course, can be read and seen about, but he can be read at In Kansas City magazine, and of course that is an online product and a great glossy product as well, and you can hear him each and every Thursday at 4 o'clock, 90.9 The Bridge with John Hart and his segment. And here we are, finally getting some good weather in April, but April's kind of a slow time in the music scene, huh?
Well, it is this year. There are, there's plenty of shows to go to, that's normal, and that's kind of the way it is in Kansas City anymore. So many clubs and a lot of variety, but no real big shows. Like Starlight isn't up and going yet. Sprint Center is taking a little bit of a break. We'll get the Sandstone or Providence Medical Center Amphitheater has a lot of shows going this summer. So, and then the Crossroads KC. Once those get going, there's at least 2 or 3 or 4 big shows a month. So that'll probably get rolling in like early to mid-May.
When you start talking about that, I thought about this in leading up to today's podcast, is the fact that it seems like Kansas City really is a good bar band city. Would you say that? I mean, those are more small clubs, but it does seem like, especially maybe over the last 5 years or so, that the ability for bands to have a place to play and gig seems to be quite good. Is that true?
It is. Especially for jazz, because I think we've talked about this before. There are two clubs that opened up right just south of Sprint Center on Grand Boulevard, Green Lady Lounge and Black Dolphin. And but other smaller places have opened up. There's a place called the Rhino, which is right across the river on Armour in North Kansas City. And it's affiliated, I think, with a microbrewery. I have not been there, but it's the shows that I've read about and been told about. It's a nice little 70 to 90 person venue, good sound system, good stage, good view. So perfect for a band that maybe can draw 50 people, and it won't look like nobody's there. But then you've got the Record Bar, and you've got the Riot Room and the Truman, which is sort of a step between Record Bar and the Midland, because it likes to hold about 1,200. So and there's plenty of the Brick. Has shows regularly, and I think what we've talked about, it would be nice to get some farther north of the river, because I used to live in Liberty. There's a place called The Landing that does a lot of cover bands, but other than that, there's just not a lot. Even though a couple of people have tried to get things going up there, and I don't know whether it's tough to get people to drive up there, so you have to draw
from there.
Who's there, and that's kind of a tough draw. But also even down in Johnson County where I live now, Kanza Hall is a nice venue. It's kind of big though, because you want to draw at least 200 or so people to make it look like
there's somebody there. Yeah. When you've been in this music scene around it in Kansas City so much, and I guess the goal of a musician when he starts to be a musician, of course, he's just driven to be a musician. But step one, which some people never make, even if they play in bands forever and a day, is to be able to be a musician and not do anything else. What kind of level do you think, could you sort of describe where somebody has to get to where they can not have a day job, I guess is what I mean?
Well, there are a few ways to approach that, and I know there's some jazz musicians in town who do nothing but that. Some of them play 3 gigs a night on a weekend.
Right.
They don't necessarily have to travel, but so you can thrive on doing just music. You better have better be a good organizer, or have someone who can keep you organized, because you have to keep hustling for gigs. It's just, even if you have something steady, you're going to have open nights where you want to fill that, because I don't think the money's great, but if you do 5 or 6 a week, you can make a pretty decent living.
Right.
And you also need a good tax person, because you're self-employed, and that's I know some friends who have had issues with that, but it's possible. As far as rock bands go, I don't know many who are only doing that.
Right.
There are a few, but they also have established themselves outside of Kansas City, and they tour regularly. And a lot of them have figured out, because I wrote about this, just Victor and Penny I wrote about them. They at some point figured out just touring everywhere and picking up every show you can book is not the way to do it. You figure out how to travel efficiently, and you go where you
set out a block of time, I'm going to play Des Moines, Iowa City, blah, blah, blah,
Omaha,
and that type of thing.
And also know that you have an audience there. They've elevated themselves because they're become part of festivals, which is a really great thing. They're part of this community of bands that plays sort of similar music, so they get asked to go to some things. But it takes a while to do that. So just expecting that you're going to start a band, and even if you're writing original music, that's good. You're barely starting, because then you've got to get the music played, you've got to get it heard, you want to get on radio, you want to get it out there and be noticed, and and then you gotta somehow get people to show up, and especially out of town. It's hard. It's
yeah. It obviously is hard, and it's somewhat of a not somewhat. It's a labor of love in many cases, and people they're always hoping for it, and then life decisions have to be made. Obviously, in situations where maybe you just say, "Hey, I'm just going to have a job, and I'm going to do it for fun, and maybe a little extra money, and whatever." Is there a situation that you see now that you mentioned getting played on the radio? I mean, standard radio now, you're not going to get, people aren't going to play, back in the day, KY 102 or something, they might play an area band, or, somebody like Styx started, something like that, or something like that. But because you have satellite radio with 1 billion channels, does that help, or is this a harder environment to get your music heard outside of playing it live?
Well, there's so much traffic. There's so much out there. I mean, Spotify is great, but you don't really get any compensation for it.
Right.
And there's just it's getting people to find you and to know that you're out there. So in Kansas City, there's one of the big radio stations spends a block of time. I think it's on Sundays playing local music. The Bridge plays a lot of local music.
Right.
And then KKFI plays. They have their format is like each DJ or host has his own format and his own kind of music that he plays. So he or she plays. So, but there's a couple of programs that emphasize local music. So it's out there on local radio. You just have to find it. The Bridge doesn't really separate it. It just puts it in with everything else, and then it tells you, by the way, that was a Kansas City band. And usually you're like, wow, that fit right in with all the mainstream big label stuff.
When you've, through the years, covered this, how much disappointment has there been for you in maybe discovering an act that you feel like is really worthy of breaking out or whatever, and it just never happens?
Oh, it's probably like at least a dozen or so. There's a band called Veda, and they got into, they signed with a big label. They got to open for The Fray, which was a big band, would sell out Starlight. They got on. They got. I think they were on the Ellen Show. They got a song on on a couple of TV shows like MTV Drama. So they were, and you were thinking, here we go. And then I think the guy who signed them got canned. A new president came in, and that's just never a good thing, because it's kind of like if you're a coach at college and get a new athletic director, you probably ought to dust off your resume. So they got, and I watched them open for The Fray once, and they were really good musicians, really good songwriters, and I thought they were right there. And it just never happened. They're the two main singer-songwriters are married and have 2 kids, and so their music isn't even in their life right now. But we have bands out there now like Madison Ward and Mama Bear, Radkey, making movies. Samantha Fish, I would say, has crossed this threshold, because she's in New Orleans and she's playing the Jazz and Heritage Festival. She's playing major festivals and doing well overseas. So she has, I think, she can do bigger and better. She signed with a bigger label. So she's poised to become even bigger, but she's doing really well right now. Probably more than anyone else I can think of from here.
Somebody who's going to be a Kansas City profile soon, who I contacted, or we've exchanged messages where we know each other, is Bob Walkenhorst, Rainmakers. That's sort of an example, and I wrote about this a little bit in the blog last week on the Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday. They made it, but then when you do the research, both of their albums are like in the low 100s. But I discovered the Rainmakers when I didn't live here. I lived in upstate New York. So they made it to a certain level. But what I described it as is a lot of times fans of a band like that, they want them to kind of make it,